All right, what's happening? What's happening? Episode 562. 562 of BD4. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, RJ. So for this episode, we are going over the Knicks. We're talking Knicks one more time before the preseason begins. This will be our last Knicks off-season episode. Because they're pretty much done with their offseason, but also because if you did not know, I mentioned in the last episode that I will be going away, so I'm not going to be here for the next 2 weeks, a little more than 2 weeks, about 2 weeks and a few days. So when I return, the NBA preseason will be underway. Actually, I think I get back the same exact night where the Knicks kick off their first preseason game. So, we're talking a little bit New York Knicks in this episode. A few different storylines to cover. Some topics that have been floating around the fan base. So we'll talk about it all in episode 562 of BD4 here. Let's get to it. I'm your host, RJ. Let's get to the intro and we'll get started. Welcome to BD4, an RJ Carbone podcast. BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. BD4 is a 5-star show on Apple Podcasts, also available in video format on YouTube and Spotify. So thanks for stopping by, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Champion of the world, turning, looking, see ya! Anthony for three, bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied! Time!
Penetrates, creates, and showing some dexterity as well with the left hand.
Yankees win!
All right, what's happening, everybody? Excuse me, episode 562 of BD4 here. Talking some New York Knicks. A few things have been surfacing lately. Nothing crazy to talk about, but just some recurring themes, storylines that we're going to keep touching on, and some new developments. I think I brought this up before, but it was in like the beginning of a Yankees episode or maybe the end of an episode where we talk Yankees. We talked a little bit about it. The NBA implemented a new rest policy. Now, when I talked about it, I didn't touch on the entire thing. I actually didn't know there was a lot more to it. So I read all of it, and this is some very, very interesting stuff. And you can consider me a fan of this new policy that they have against load management. We're going to get into it right now. It's some really good stuff. I am all for this. I love this. I think this will be great for the NBA. So basically, you cannot rest 2 of your star players in one game. That is now a rule that's being implemented starting this upcoming season. Now, a star player defined by the NBA is a player who made the All-Star team or any of the All-NBA teams in any of the last 3 seasons. That is what a star player is. So you cannot rest 2 star players in one game. And, the reasons are pretty obvious. They're trying to prevent load management. They're trying to grow the game, right? You want more stars to play on national TV. They got this new NBA Cup tournament, the in-season tournament. They want players to be available for that. They're trying to grow the game, make money, globalize the sport. And how do you do that? You get the superstars playing. they're trying to, you want to give fans fair value on their tickets. There's been so many times, over the years where, Spurs fans would pay big money to go watch some of their favorite players just to find out that Kawhi Leonard's not going to play that night, or, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker isn't going to play. Nowadays, Kawhi Leonard, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, so the reasons are very good reasons. It's for good reason that this is happening. Now there are exceptions to this rule. If you are at least 35 years old or have played 34,000 career minutes or more in both the regular and postseason, or if you've played at least 1,000 career games in the regular and postseason combined. If you've done either of those three, you are excluded from this rule. So you're allowed to sit. So basically, like, who meets that criteria? Probably just LeBron James, right? It's basically LeBron James, the only one who's kind of fitting the exception here. But for us, for Knicks fans, I don't think there's really a need to worry about that with, Thibodeau around. I don't think he's very fond of load management anyway. So those are the exceptions. And you can also rest your star in the final game of the season if you've already clinched a playoff spot. And there's something else in there I forgot. It was something about, like, if you have a prior injury. But there's a couple exceptions. And I'm sure there are going to be loopholes that teams find too. Teams always find a way to maneuver and, figure out a way to cheat the system. Also, like we mentioned when we brought this rule up in one of our Yankees episodes, in order to qualify for MVP or Defensive Player of the Year or any other individual award, a player must play at least 65 games, which is just about 80% of the season. So, yes, I love these rules. I think this is excellent. I think this is just a perfect, and it's very strict. Those are some strict rules, and it makes great sense, and I think it's going to be good. You're going to get a lot more activity, a lot more superstars playing in games. The Clippers aren't going to be able to do their bullshit. Yeah, it's good. Recently there's this thing going around. I think Adam Silver had a press conference, and there was a reporter who asked Silver about the Knicks, Dolan, Leon Rose, like their press availability, how the Knicks have been pretty like the media silence on the Knicks ends has, I guess it's bothered some reporters. I know Frank Isola in the past has had a problem with it, but this other guy asked Silver about it. And that's how the Knicks operate. That's how Leon Rose operates. He operates under the radar. He works in silence, or what's that thing? Moves in silence, people say. I fucking hate when people say that. But yeah, he works very quietly. I mean, he'll even decline press conferences. There was that 14-month period where we never heard a single peep from Leon, right? So, do I care? It would be nice sometimes. Like, the accountability, I get that, especially during tough times. You want to hear from him. I remember when the Knicks had that awful loss during an awful stretch where they were just getting blown out. They got their asses kicked by OKC, and then like that Dallas game where they collapsed in the second half was like the low point of their season. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, where is Leon? Why isn't he addressing the team? So I get it. I definitely understand it. But at the end of the day, I lean more towards the side that says we don't care, because I don't really care about talk. I always say talk isn't cheap, but it's free, meaning talk is completely useless. It's meaningless. I don't care about the words that come out of your mouth. Just do your job and I am cool. Build me a competitive team, spend money, get me a star, make trades, draft, sign, and develop talent, and win. Win, 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 win. That is all I care about. Plus, we already have a good idea of what the direction is. And whenever Leon does speak, all they do is shoot, cookie cutter answers and just give you the cliche garbage, right? That's what organizations do. But we have a good idea of what their direction is. We know. Have there been some hiccups along the way? Absolutely. Evan Fournier, Obi Toppin, Cam Reddish trade was a mess. But for the most part, they've established a clear plan, and we know about it. They've stockpiled on assets, draft picks, young players, affordable contracts, mid-tier exception. They've built a competitive team with that, drafting well, and they're in a good situation financially. So with all of that, their next and final step is accomplishing the goal for said plan, which is acquiring that superstar with those assets that you've compiled. Acquire that superstar and go on and win a championship. Go win an NBA championship. And until then, until we get that superstar to play next to Jalen Brunson, I can't grade this front office. I can only grade them TBD. They've done a fine job up to now, right? They've done a nice job getting the Knicks to be relevant again and getting them back on track. But I can't really evaluate it yet because we're not done with this process. The window isn't closed yet. With some guys coming off the books soon, it could be closed sooner than we think. But I think the media silence doesn't really bother me. But that's easy to say while we're in a good spot. We're winning. And, they're not technically breaking any of the NBA's media mandates. That's basically what Silver was saying in his response too, is that they're following the rules. They're not breaking anything. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, but some important dates coming up. Again, we're pretty much through the off season. Training camp begins on October 3rd, although veterans can report on the 2nd. Found that interesting how veterans, you would think they get longer time, but the NBA preseason begins on October 5th. That is for teams who are playing internationally, but the Knicks are playing in country for their first preseason game, which I believe is not until the 9th. So they play Boston in their first preseason game Tuesday, October 9th, maybe Monday, October 9th. And then on the 24th of October, the Knicks play their first regular season game. That's Tuesday the 24th is opening night for the rest of the league. The Knicks, I think, open up Wednesday the 25th, also against Boston. This one is at Madison Square Garden. Believe it's the ESPN game. So, heading into camp, the Knicks will be going in as of now with, I think, 15 players signed. That vacant spot, they had 14. That vacant spot was just recently filled when they completed the Nova Knicks, or added another one to the mix with the Ryan Arcidiacono. Fucking always fuck up his name. Arcidiacono. With that acquisition, they brought him back. He's reunited with Brunson and Josh Hart. The next step is obviously Mikal Bridges. No, but they have 15 players signed right now. Brunson, Grimes, Barrett, Randall, Robinson, Quickley, DiVincenzo, Hart, Hartenstein, Sims, Roby, Deuce McBride, Fournier, Jeffries, and Arcidiacono. They've got a few Exhibit 10 players, and that's AKA your nobodies who won't see a second. Dwayne Washington Jr., if you care. Nathan Knight. They've got this Ukrainian kid who I won't even attempt to pronounce his last name. It's Dimitro something. Don't want to disrespect him by butchering his name, so I feel like it's less disrespectful to just not say his last name because I cannot pronounce it. Jalen Martin, Dylan Windler from Cleveland, and then Charlie Brown Jr., who was picked up when the Knicks waived Obi Toppin's brother that they had for a few minutes. But these guys aren't making the team. They aren't playing. Tibbs has his 9 guys all set, and then the occasional 10th man, Sims, Deuce. We know this. So not many changes on the depth chart from last year to this year, right? Obi's out, DiVincenzo's in. So your likely rotation is going to consist of your starting 5 being Brunson, Grimes, RJ, Randall, and Mitch. And then your 4 second unit players consisting of Quick, Hart, DiVincenzo, and Hartenstein. So that looks like it's going to be your 9-man rotation if everyone's healthy heading into opening night. So obviously, the one glaring weakness that pops out at you when you look at those guys is the lack of size there. The Knicks are undersized. That's not an out there statement. The Knicks replaced Obi Toppin, 6'9", 220 something, with Dante DiVincenzo, 6'4", 200, let's say. Obi power forward, DiVincenzo a guard. So they lack power forward depth behind Julius. They are also small at wing, and they're small at guard too. Brunson, Quickley, 2 very small point guards. We saw in the playoffs, as good as he was, Jalen Brunson did get targeted by Cleveland and Miami. They hunted him on those switches. Grimes and RJ are capable of playing up at the wing, but they are smaller wings, and RJ's got his defensive concerns. You're also going to see RJ play up at the 4 some. Josh Hart will likely be seeing even more time at backup 4, but he's small for that spot. Will Josh Hart's rebounding play the same down low with power forwards up at the 4 that it does, flying in from the perimeter at guard? Probably not. It might see a decrease. DiVincenzo will probably play up at the 3 on occasion because you want him playing off ball as the catch and shoot extraordinaire. So he'll be alongside Brunson and Randall at times, and RJ out there. So can he guard up at the 3? That's a tough ask. We don't know. I don't know what he did. I don't know how often he played 3 with Golden State and Milwaukee and Sacramento, but again, with Tibbs, we know Tibbs is going to run those double big lineups too. So it's very extreme with the Knicks since they only have one true power forward, considering Roby doesn't play and he won't and he shouldn't. It's very extreme. They're either going to have out there, they're either going to be very undersized or oversized, right? Like Tibbs likes running big because he's in love with rim protection. But that also has to be something that's matchup dependent. And here's a terrifying thought. Who is that on? That's going to be on Thibodeau to be aware and make those adjustments. Do we really trust Tibbs to be flexible and adjust mid-game? I mean, that's been his biggest knock. If the Knicks are playing a big front court, like, I don't know, Minnesota or Milwaukee, that's a great example. We know Tibbs loves Josh Hart, but what if we're getting killed on the glass and at the rim? Giannis is up there in the front court along with Brook Lopez and Portis, and he's going to need to double up with Hartenstein at the 4 in those games. But if the Knicks are playing a smaller team like the Nets, Tibbs is going to have to make reads on the fly and go with small ball lineups for speed, and he could be reluctant to do that. He's going to have to find this and adjust and not just stick to a script quarters 1 to 4, but actually have a plan that adjusts within the flow of the game. That's been his weakness. That's how he was outcoached in each of the postseasons he's got the Knicks to. And what if Julius goes down? Then the Knicks are absolutely, I hate to say, screwed. There's no depth there. Julius is a workhorse. He's used for a ton of minutes. He plays very physical game. He's coming off the ankle injury. What if he goes down? That could happen. Then you're running with a front court rotation of Josh Hart, RJ Barrett, Isaiah Hartenstein, and Mitchell Robinson, who is also injury prone. He goes down. You got Sims, who's one of the best third string bigs in the league, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but he's not a starting center. He's still very raw. So they need Randle to stay healthy. But it's just something they're going to have to maneuver. We did mention DiVincenzo, so I do want to touch on him for a minute. When we return from break, I want to talk a little bit more about Donte DiVincenzo and his shooting. So we'll talk about that when we return from break. Stay with us here on BD4, episode 562. Be right back.
We appreciate you sticking around and listening so far. When you have a chance, be sure to open YouTube to subscribe, like, and comment. And if you're already watching on YouTube, be sure to head over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. We appreciate your feedback and are always looking to improve. Now, with that all said, let's get you back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone, and you are listening to episode 562 of the podcast, talking a little New York Knicks. So Donte DiVincenzo was obviously brought in here a few months back. And, we've talked about him a few times when we've dropped Knicks episodes this offseason. But one thing I feel like I should have mentioned, I didn't know this, which is why I didn't mention it. I guess I should have done more research on his three-point shooting, but his three-point shot has not been the most consistent. It's not been as knocked down as I thought. I was looking at his basketball reference, and I knew some of it. I didn't really know it by memory, but I looked at it. There's a little bit of concern there. His rookie year, 2019 with Milwaukee, 27% in 27 games. 2020 with Milwaukee, 34% in 66 games. 2021 with Milwaukee, 38% in 66 games. 2022 with Milwaukee, 28% in 17 games. Then they traded him to Sacramento, where he was 37% in the final 25 games. Overall that year, he was 34% in 42 games. And then last season with Golden State, he shot 40% just about in 72 games. So really in 6 seasons? No, 5 seasons. In 5 seasons, he's had an elite three-point percentage twice. And mediocre or worse 3 times. And he's had stints with teams where he didn't shoot well too. His best shooting season came last year with Golden State at 40%, who Golden State is known as, they're known for their powerhouse offense under Steve Kerr. So that raises the question, Was Dante DiVincenzo a product of Golden State, playing along Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and with a playmaker like Draymond Green in a Steve Kerr offense? Because Kerr's offense is 1,000% different and more fit for a jump shooter than a Tom Thibodeau ran offense. A Steve Kerr offense focuses on spacing and ball movement. A Tom Thibodeau offense focuses on ISO, and it's more read and react. So it's definitely a concern for sure. It's something to keep an eye on because we don't need him not shooting well. Like, we do need him to shoot the ball pretty damn well. You know, the Knicks have been inconsistent from three for a little bit. We got DiVincenzo. We signed him on that contract to get some damn shooting in here. You know, I'm not saying I need 40%, but it'd be nice. It'd certainly be nice. Like, if he plays good defense, if he rebounds, if he knocks down his catch and shoot, and if he gives you 37% at worst, I will take that. Right? If he shoots well, that's going to be a huge shot boost to replace Obi Toppin, who wasn't, you know, a jump shooter at the volume that DiVincenzo can be. With DiVincenzo, that's big. And he's playing in the second unit alongside Josh Hart, who has to show that he can shoot well too. He's not going to be 60% or whatever the hell he was when he got traded over to the Knicks. I hope he's not at the same time as bad as he was in the playoffs from the perimeter. If he can be somewhere in between, you know, league average, that'd be great. But in reality, Josh Hart is the one replacing Obi Toppin at the 4. And then DiVincenzo will be replacing Josh Hart's spot. So that does, I guess, make it a little bit easier to live with. Basically, we need those guys to just knock him down. We need DiVincenzo to be a great shooter. We need Josh Hart to at least be adequate. So the shooting is going to be interesting. You know, you got a lot of guards. How are you going to play them all? We've discussed that before. Yeah. When we return from break, we're going to head to another quick break. I want to talk about this CBS Top 100 list that was just written the other day, last week. We'll do it when we return. Stay with us here in the podcast. We'll be right back. Episode 562 of BD4.
If you have time in the day or maybe just prefer old-fashioned reading over listening, then you can always follow along and subscribe to BD4 Blog by going to BD4blog.com. We're not on there as often, but when we do post, it's just as entertaining, opinionated, and passionate as we are on this podcast. Thank you so much. And let's keep on with the show.
All right. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ. So last week, CBS dropped an article where they they jotted down their top 100 NBA players heading into the 2023-24 season. Now, before we dive into this a little bit, the list that they made was not based on past performance, but instead it's based on what is ahead, what CBS sees them doing in the upcoming season. And first of all, I think that's pretty dumb. Either make a list of top 100 players, period. Simple as that, or don't. Like, you're either a top 100 player. Like, you shouldn't. Why make it complicated? Are you a top 100 player or are you not? So they did it based on what's ahead, which doesn't make sense. And I know that I'm biting the bait by clicking on this article and complaining about it in a second. But whatever. This is what we do as content creators. We talk. They have Jalen Brunson at number 27 on the list. I think that's fair. I would maybe have him a little higher, a little better on the list. You know, I think Drew Holiday was higher than him. I would have Brunson above him for sure. I would have him above Trae Young. I think Trae Young is very overrated, at least his impact to winning. I will probably have him over Bam Adebayo. Brunson's more legit than a lot of people think. I think he got the recognition after his postseason performance, but yeah, I would probably have him 24-ish, but at this point that's semantics. So I think his spot at 27 is fine. Randle though was ranked at 59. And that has a lot of Knicks fans talking. And underneath each of these rankings, they had, a little synopsis of why they put them where they put them. And the explanation by this CBS writer, I'll read it right here. In his synopsis, word for word, he says, "We know that Randle can score efficiently at high volume on a jumper-heavy shot diet. We don't know if he can do it in consecutive seasons or in the playoffs. The glass half full perspective is that the Knicks addition of Jalen Brunson opened things up for Randle last season in a sustainable way, only for an ankle injury to limit his effectiveness in the postseason. The glass half empty perspective is that Randle's game, the ball stopping, the tough twos, the hot and cold three-point shooting, doesn't hold up against playoff defenses designed to make him uncomfortable. He earned his 2 All-Star appearances, but it's not an accident that there are non-stars ranked higher on this list." So I actually agree with the summary there. I think that's pretty perfectly put. The problem is, I think it's a very good point to make him 35 instead of 25. But I don't think that's something you say and then put him 59th. Like, he wrote a very reasonable synopsis. But you look at the players, you look at the list of players ahead of him. It's a bunch of non-stars, like role players, and guys who haven't played a minute yet. You got Wembanyama on there. You got Rudy Gobert, Marcus Smart, OG Anunoby, Aaron Gordon, Andrew Wiggins, Desmond Bane, Mobley, Porzingis, Brook Lopez, Paolo Banchero, Cade Cunningham, and Franz Wagner. Those are all guys who are ahead. And Draymond Green, they're all ahead of him. So again, it's based on what lies ahead in the future, but besides potential, you have one other thing to look at when determining a player's upcoming season, and that's his past, right? And Randle's past, 2-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA, and a most improved player in there. You've got, again, Marcus Smart. That's an intangibles guy. He's a glue guy. Rudy Gobert, that trade was a disaster for Minnesota. Porzingis, 48, 0, 57, 43, 51, 65. Those are the amount of games played in each of his last 6 seasons in the NBA. How can you project him to be better than Randle when he's projected to get hurt again? And even his numbers, when healthy, weren't as good as Julius's, where you can project that upside. Cade Cunningham, another injury-prone player. Middleton, another banged-up dude on that list ahead of Randle. My God, Draymond Green, another intangibles guy. A dude who probably, what is the average? 6 points? Projected to probably do the same shit, but a little less effective this year because he's older. But he's ranked not just higher than Randle, but he's 29 spots higher. Dude. And that's coming from someone who has trouble liking this guy, right? I'm not a big Randle fan. I am nowhere near being his biggest fan. I've wanted him gone for years now. But still, I would say he's definitely top 50, and he's probably even top 4. He's probably 30-something, right? Mid-30s, around there. When you consider everything about Randle, right? The positives about him, the scoring, the rebounding, the playmaking, the durability that he brings. He helped lead the Knicks to the playoffs twice, and he did it all by himself a few years ago, right? That's the pros. Those are the pros. The weaknesses on him, well, when you consider the defense, the inefficiency, the postseason performances, leadership flaws, all that drama, I think you consider both the pros and cons, and he lands probably right around 35. Yeah. So I just thought, when I saw that list and saw who was ahead of him, absolutely absurd. But then again, CBS are the same ones who gave the Knicks the infamous D grade when they drafted Emmanuel Quickley. So there you go. Speaking of Quickley, we've talked about this, but Emmanuel Quickley's future is interesting. I personally think he's done. I think he's gone. I know they have until the day before tip-off to make the extension happen, but something tells me he's out. I think the writing is on the wall. You got the whole poison pill thing where it's much more difficult to trade a player on a rookie scale contract that's signed an extension now under the new CBA rules. It would make the contract situation very difficult between both parties, matching salaries. The Knicks have a right to let him become a restricted free agent next summer. Because they can match any offer, but this regime usually makes it clear who their guys are. They usually always take care of their guys early, and they don't wait to get it done. You look at the extensions they've handed out, RJ, Randle, they've got it done earlier before their contracts expired. It just feels like Quickley probably would have been signed already. And the fact that the Knicks made him move, they moved a power forward off the roster and they still signed another guard, tells me they wouldn't do something redundant like that unless they're planning on moving one of their guards. And right now, who's their most expendable guard? Unfortunately, if you like him, Emmanuel Quickley. And who doesn't like Quickley? He wants to be a starter, but it's hard to envision that here. Brunson is obviously at point guard. Tibbs is a huge Quentin Grimes fan. We know the Knicks want that superstar, and Quickley is an expendable player, but he's a very enticing option for a lot of owners out there, GMs out there. He would most definitely be in an Embiid deal. We'll see how that situation plays out. The Giannis situation is getting more interesting by the day. Quickley would probably be in that deal. And we know the Knicks can't keep all these guys on the books. Quickley will be demanding a lot of money. Definitely over $100 million for sure. I mean, just look at the market now. Everyone's getting paid. You got Spencer Dinwiddie on a $20 million salary last year. Harris earned $20 million last year. Conley, $24 million last year. Malcolm Brogdon, $23 million, who was just right above Quickley in the 6-man race. He won it over Quickley. Anthony Simons, $24 million last season. Buddy Hield, $19 million. I think Emmanuel Quickley is definitely deserving to get paid just as much, if not higher, than most of those guys on that list. Last season, Quickley averaged 15 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 45% shooting, 37% from 3, 82% from the free throw line, and he played great defense. As a starter last year, 23-5-5 on 47%, 40%, and 85%. He really, really helped the Knicks down the stretch last year, getting into the playoff race, filling in for Brunson when he was out, playing alongside Brunson at times in the starting lineup. He really helped them revamp their season after that very poor start for the Knicks in November and December. Did he struggle in the playoffs? Yeah, he did. Will it take money off his next deal? Probably a little bit, maybe. I don't know if it's going to be too much because he's still a young player. He's a combo guard, can play either one. He brings a good offense, good defense, playmaking. He's a marketable dude. And he still did contribute in the postseason for the Knicks, despite the shot not being there. He did play defense. He was making good passes, and he's playing good defense. He played, better than we made it seem. It wasn't close to what it needed to be. But I still think he's getting $100 million. I think he's going to get $100 million. Let's say 4 years. That's a $25 million AAV. And the Knicks are going to have to make a decision soon on what they want to do. They don't have to, but I just have a feeling that he's not going to be extended before opening night. And again, that's the deadline. So if you don't extend a guy, it makes it much easier to trade that guy because of the poison pill. Speaking of trades, Evan Fournier. This is going to be an interesting development whenever it starts happening because it's coming. As we get closer to camp, it's coming. Obviously, Fournier went as far as to express his frustrations with the team on a podcast, talked about Thibodeau and the treatment that he's been getting from the Knicks. It just feels weird to keep him around at this point. Will he make it to training camp? I want to say no. I feel like it might be 55-45. Yes. But maybe he does make it to camp. Maybe he breaks camp only because there's no trade value there right now. And so maybe he comes off the bench, plays a few minutes a game, tries to build value a little bit. The Knicks involve him in some offensive sets, run different actions for him. I don't know. But I think it's eventually going to happen. Get that $19 million off the books, hopefully. It just feels like a waste of a roster spot at this point. Maybe they do the Kemba thing. Tell him to hang home for a while. He's not with the team, so he won't be there as a distraction. And hopefully that happens and both sides are actively looking for a solution in the meantime. Because if it gets to a point where nobody wants that contract, you might have to buy him out. And that has to be the very last resort because you don't just want to throw away millions and millions of dollars like that. So, yeah, you got to find a trade. Hopefully you don't have to attach a draft pick to it. That would be terrible. That would be such a bad look. Such a bad look. Speaking of bad looks, DraftKings Sportsbook. Is this a bad look for them? That was a bad transition. Terrible segue. But DraftKings Sportsbook. I was looking at their sportsbook recently, and I saw some of their projections. And their win projection, their over-under for the Knicks wins in 2023-2024, 45.5. So let's start with the teams I think will be better than the Knicks for sure. Milwaukee, Boston, and Philadelphia, considering they don't blow it up, let's just say as of now, those are the only three teams I am stapling in above the Knicks in the East. And each of them will probably win over 50 games. Miami, I think they're going to be more of the same as they were last year. Load management rules will be interesting to see how they maneuver that. I do think they have a chance to grab a spot over the Knicks if they grab Damian Lillard. That's something that could still happen. Even if they don't, they have a chance to be better than the Knicks. So that leaves the Knicks to be, a 4 or 5 seed? which the Knicks are plus 650 to grab the number 4 seed. And they are plus 550 for the number 5 seed. I really might take one of those. That's a good number. So if they're 4, if they're 5, that's most likely over on the 45.5 wins. So I'm hitting the over there. And I would have underneath the Knicks, New Jersey. They're probably going to be more the same team, maybe a little worse. Atlanta, I feel like they're constantly overrated. I have them below the Knicks. And I think a sleeper team that people are forgetting about, maybe not, but a team that could be a lot better this year than they were last year, wins-wise, a young, hungry, and improving every year team, the Orlando Magic. They've got some good, solid young talent. They might not be above the Knicks, but I wouldn't be shocked to see them right in the thick of it. Right, the play-in could be a possible scenario for them. Maybe they're a borderline playoff team. Like maybe they're 6 or 7. I'm just saying, I would not be totally shocked if Orlando found a way to grab this 6th seed. Let that be my hot take in the Eastern Conference. So regarding the 45.5, if I am a Knicks fan, I am probably taking that bet right now. I'm probably going to go place that bet as soon as I finish recording this episode. That seems like free money to me. It's plus 100 too, so it's not bad money either. They also have the Knicks at plus 5,000 to win the NBA Finals. Not bad, folks. If you want a little throwaway bet, whatever amount you consider throwaway money, why not? That's not a terrible thing to do there. In a perfect world, maybe there's a path for it. I know one year doesn't guarantee the next, but I'm not afraid of Cleveland. And I feel like with Miami, even older now, no major additions. And again, if they don't get Dame, I feel like the Knicks can hang with them. I feel like they're capable of beating them. So if they run into them again in the postseason, they got a really good, I don't want to say they got lucky last year, but they were fortunate to run into teams that matched up well with them, that they matched up well with. But if they, I don't know. I don't think they're getting past the Eastern Conference Finals, though. That's going to be the tough part if they can. I think that's their ceiling right now. I think without a true superstar next to Jalen Brunson, the Knicks have a ceiling. I think as long as Randle is your number 2 option, the Knicks have a ceiling. That's very unfortunate, but that's something I've been preaching for a little bit. They've got to find a way to get a superstar in here to play with Brunson. Some other wagers that I might consider placing on DraftKings. I saw that Quickley was the favorite to win 6th Man of the Year at plus 700. Jalen Brunson to make the All-NBA first team plus 1,500. Mitchell Robinson to crack the All-Defensive first team is plus 1,200. The Knicks to win the NBA Cup plus 2,200. Could be something. The NBA Cup, for those who don't know, is that mid-season tournament that will be taking place late December or something like that. And then Randle, I saw this one I might take because it's very possible. Randle to lead the league in rebounds per game plus 4,000. So I thought those were some interesting bets. But I think that's it. I think that's all we've got. So what we're going to do, head to our final break, wrap this one up when we return with our question of the day, and that'll be that. Stay with us here on BD4. We'll be right back.
You can also find us on social media. If you'd like, you can follow BD4 on Facebook, and we're at BD4Pod on both Instagram and Twitter. We appreciate you helping us grow more and more every day. Let's get back to it.
Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio 69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to episode 562 of the podcast. Now, before we move on to our final segment and do the trivia, just one last heads up. I will be away for the next 2 weeks. So if you are a Yankees fan also, and you're listening to this episode, most likely this upcoming series that they have starting tomorrow, Tuesday, the 20th or 19th, that will be the final Yankees series of the season that I cover. So I will most likely miss the final 3 series of the year. It's a good thing the Yankees are out of it, or else I'd be going crazy. But yep. And again, as the Knicks season creeps closer, when I get back from my 2-week vacation, we'll probably be covering some preseason games. So we'll see. But we're definitely going to be, active as soon as the regular season starts for the Knicks, covering every game. We'll miss here and there, but the plan is to do 80% of the games at least for the Knicks this year. We're about 90% of the Yankees series covered this year. So we covered a good amount. Now, again, we're going to miss the final 3, so that'll probably drop to 80-something%. But, yeah, we cover a great amount. So with that all said, if you guys want to subscribe to the blog in the meantime, I might write one out as we get closer to the Knicks season, and I might jot one down as we wrap up the Yankees season. BD4blog.com. You can find my content there as well. That's my website, BD4blog.com. That is my website. So with that said, let's wrap this thing up and get to our trivia for this episode. Let's do it. All right. So for this episode 562 of the podcast, our NYY-NYK-MMA trivia question of the day is, which team did Dave DeBusschere coach after his playing career with the Knicks? All right. Which team did Dave DeBusschere coach after his playing career with the Knicks? I will give you a hint if you want a hint. Dave DeBusschere coached the only other team that he played for in his career. That might be too big of a hint if you're decent on your history. All right. So one final time, which team did Dave DeBusschere coach after his playing career with the Knicks? And your hint is the team that he coached, he played for before the Knicks. And that's it. I appreciate you all tuning in. That's it for this episode. I will see you one final time coming up on Thursday when we recap this upcoming Yankees series. And then after that, I'll see you in 2.5 weeks. So that's it. I appreciate you tuning in once again. Episode 562 is in the books here on BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. And that's it for this next episode. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next episode. Later. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.
Hey there! If you stayed the entire way through, we thank you immensely for it. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you come back for the next episode real soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, download these episodes, and share them with your friends as well. BD4 is a 5-star podcast simply because of you, and we'd like to keep it that way. Have a wonderful day. Go Yankees and go Knicks!